in the chat box, who do you think's going to win March Madness tonight if you follow basketball? We got Purdue against UConn. I got UConn. Actually, in my March Madness bracket, I had Purdue and UConn making it to the championship. I know, I'm pretty cool, right? But anyways, yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin miners, their underperformance, why they're underperforming, when I think they're going to stop underperforming, because I do think now is a great opportunity. Really quick, I forgot to pull up my chat here, and I want to do that so I don't miss any of you guys' comments or questions. So just give me a moment to get this pulled up here. Okay, yep, I think we're good to go here. And yeah, if you have questions, comments, or thoughts, leave it in the chat and I'll get to it here by the end of the live stream. But yeah, let's kind of give some background to this. So I'm going to switch to my Google Chrome screen. Bitcoin is close to an all-time high again. And this is after, towards the end of last week, we were kind of back in the mid $60,000 range. Well, we're back to over $71,000 per Bitcoin, really close to the all-time high that we set just a few weeks ago it was. So very, very interesting price action with Bitcoin, considering that when we look at a Bitcoin miner ETF, it's really struggled. In a Bitcoin miner ETF is just an easy way for us to look at all the Bitcoin miners, kind of group them together rather than pulling up each individual stock chart, if that makes sense. So it's easier on my end. But yeah, it's no one specific Bitcoin mining stock that's struggling. It's all of them. Like over the last 5 days, the We're Gonna Make It stock, so Valkyrie's Bitcoin Miners ETF, ticker symbol WGMI, is down 3.16%, but Bitcoin over the last 5 days is up 8.6%. And this sort of underperformance of miners has been a consistent theme lately. And the first thing I want to say is, you know, it seems like there's a big notion out there that, and I talk in a lot of spaces on Twitter. I talk to my own Discord community. I talk to you guys that follow and subscribe to my channel. And there's a big notion out there that the reason Bitcoin mining stocks are down is because their revenues are about to be cut in half, which maybe that is a fact. That is true. But I don't want to sound rude when I say this, but I think that's kind of a misinformed conclusion, because a halving event it's not an unknown. It is a known catalyst that happens every 4 years for these companies. I'm 22 years old, and when I put together my price target spreadsheets for CleanSpark stock, for example, my biggest miner allocation, this is something I factor into my price targets. It's not like this halving event just randomly crept up on these companies and randomly crept up on Wall Street. This is something that Wall Street prices in, just like it's something I price in. So I would agree with you if this was a random unknown event, but this is a known catalyst to the market. So if you think that's why mining stocks are down, I think you're somewhat misguided, though I do think it has some impact just because of how many people are misinformed about it. The way things look, it has a big impact on how things trade. And let me tell you, online, the sentiment around Bitcoin mining stocks is absolutely terrible. Like, I think I would even put this up there with back when I was buying Bitcoin mining stocks, CleanSpark in particular, at $4 or $2 a share during the bear market when nobody else wanted to buy and I was buying. Sentiment is that bad now. It's very close to that. And I'll kind of show you why I think that based on this tweet I put out this morning. This is kind of funny. So pre-market, you know, Bitcoin miners have been kind of doing this pre and post-market. They go up a lot pre-market and they go up a lot post-market. But during market hours, it seems like it's always a sell down, sell down, sell down. No matter how hot we are pre-market or post-market the previous day, seems like intraday Bitcoin mining stocks just go down. And so it's kind of funny. But I put this tweet out. What the heck? I was told Bitcoin miners would never follow Bitcoin again. Miners are dead, they said. So obviously this didn't end up holding true again today because miners faded a lot in stock price. Most of them finished the day red. Cypher Mining had a really good day. They sustained their gains. But the responses I got to this tweet are just indicative of the overall sentiment around Bitcoin mining stocks. Because, you know, just like I mocked the people that think Bitcoin mining stocks are dead, they kind of mocked me back. And I was asking for it, right? Absolutely. I'm not offended by it at all, but it's just very representative of the sentiment around mining stocks right now, where everybody is so quick to jump on something when it doesn't happen with Bitcoin mining stocks. Like, ooh, RexFinance was wrong this morning. I got to tell him he was wrong. Ha 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 ha. I knew this would happen because I knew Bitcoin mining stocks were going to go down. And it's just hilarious because what did this tweet get? 126 comments or replies. And I would say I would have gotten 10% of the amount of replies if Bitcoin miners didn't fade today. So I always find it funny when people have the ability of hindsight to judge somebody's post. Like, it's kind of funny, but you know, if you just read through these, they jinxed it. This did not age well right before they tanked. If I keep scrolling, you'll see people kind of mocking me and my age and how I need more experience if I wasn't ready for miners to tank again today. Stuff like that. This guy, Chris, you are such a noob, LOL. And, you know, all these people, is this a parody account? Somebody said, oh boy, you need to gain experience. It's funny to me. It is funny to me. And again, I'm not offended by it at all, but it's purely representative of the sentiment right now. Like, people are convinced mining stocks are never going to trade with Bitcoin ever again. And I'm going to make this prediction right now, and maybe I'll end up eating my words. I don't make short-term predictions that often because, you know, it's not very smart to do so if you want to be respected. But I'm going to make this prediction here for the 150 to 200 people that are watching right now. I think right now is going to prove to be one of the best buying opportunities for Bitcoin mining stocks. I think Bitcoin mining stocks are going to rocket after the halving event. I don't take that lightly when I say that because I've been very conservative. You'd know if you follow my channel. I'm kind of ready for the markets to keep cooling off and kind of be flat, but I think Bitcoin mining stocks are in a unique position right now to really rocket post-halving. A lot of people thought that, you know, everybody was on board with miners. And a lot of these people that were giving me heck today, they just have no idea. They have no idea I've been in this space for 4 years now, 4+ years now. They have no idea I own a whole Bitcoin and I bought it at $23,000 per Bitcoin. They have no idea. These are the people that bought CleanSpark at $20 a share. These are the people that are late to the game judging me, right? So it's kind of funny to think about it in that aspect, but man, yeah, if you want a lesson on engagement farming, this tweet is a good example of it, you know, because if mining stocks did well today, this tweet still would have done really well, and if mining stocks did poorly like they did, you'd have all these people trying to correct me and say I was wrong, and I was wrong, but yeah, it's kind of funny, and you have people blaming my youth and all this random stuff. Like if I pull up a couple of these quotes. I think Rex tweeted this at the very local top this morning for Bitcoin miner stocks. Impressive. I said, you're a bundle of joy. And yeah, I don't know. I don't need to bore you with all this stuff, but sentiment is very bad right now. And I guess I should discuss why I think these stocks are going down short term. So first of all, sentiment, number one key right now, why these stocks are going down. Number 2 on my list is all of these companies have dilution programs. Every single one of these public Bitcoin mining stocks have dilution programs. In fact, just recently, I don't remember what day it was, but just recently, CleanSpark came out with a brand new $800 million at the market dilution program. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of shares that are going to be flooded into the markets. And I'll just tell you this, when Bitcoin has moved so fast from $30,000 to $40,000 to over $70,000, you've had all of these companies all of a sudden identify that growing is going to be very lucrative for their business and very accretive to shareholders because the price of Bitcoin has gone up so much. And that's likely a fact, but that is a big change from what these mining companies were thinking just a few months ago when Bitcoin is at $30,000 or $40,000. None of these companies were planning on growing that much. Like, you can go back and listen to their earnings calls, their sit downs with analysts on Wall Street. All of these companies, none of them were planning on growing. They were all planning on, okay, we've done our growth. We're going to sit back. We're going to let the market kind of work itself out. And then maybe, you know, several months or quarters after the halving event, we'll look at the market and see if it's ripe for acquisition or merger opportunities. That's changed. That has changed a lot. And you have companies like CleanSpark coming out saying they're going to dilute another $800 million of cash. another $800 million of shares and raise $800 million of cash. And you have the biggest player in the space, Marathon Digital, who has, $1.5 billion going on $2 billion of liquidity. All of that liquidity comes from somewhere, because these companies, they don't sell their Bitcoin. This is a unique industry where it really is the first industry that's ever existed where these companies don't sell what they produce. So they have to come up with their capital and their cash some other way. And the way they do that is by selling more shares to the open markets. Now, identifying which management teams are going to use that dilution to accretively grow is very key if you want to be a successful investor in this space. CleanSpark's done really great at this in the past. It's part of the reason my investment in CleanSpark has done so well, is because the management team has executed. Now, it's no guarantee that they're going to continue to execute, but if they continue to do these accretive acquisitions and accretive growth for shareholders, all in all, you're going to be better off as an investor in this company than you were before any dilution took place, if they are good stewards of shareholder capital. So that's point number 2, and I think it's probably the biggest point. All of these companies, there's not a single public Bitcoin mining company out there that doesn't have a dilution program of some sorts that they're tapping into right now, because the prospects of their company have increased and improved dramatically in a few short months. That's a big change, and all of these companies now are planning on growing, and they're planning on being able to merge and acquire other companies post-halving. And, that's also a reason why maybe there won't be as much merger or acquisition post-halving than previously thought. And it's because everybody is gearing up for this. Everybody's raising cash for this. Everybody's going to be looking to acquire distressed assets. So any distressed assets that do pop up are going to disappear off the market in a hurry. Now, what I do think is likely to happen, wrong chart here. What I do think is likely to happen is the public space with Bitcoin mining is going to become larger and larger, a larger and larger percentage of the overall Bitcoin network hash rate. Because right now, if you tally up all of the mining capacity and mining power of the public Bitcoin mining stocks, they command like 20 to 25% of the total Bitcoin mining network, which means the other 75 to 80% is commanded by private entities. It could be governments, it could be individuals, it could be private companies. Whatever it is, it's private. And the private companies don't have access to the capital like the public companies have access to. Public companies, they're doing it now. They're turning around and selling shares to the open markets to raise capital. Sure, there's private equity, but the amount of liquidity available to the private entities is very limited compared to the public companies. And the reason this is a big deal is because this halving event, I think, is going to impact the private entities more than ever before, because the private entities, for the most part, probably mine their Bitcoin and they sell their Bitcoin because they have very limited ability to raise capital outside of selling what they produce. And as a result of that, they're going to struggle to grow. They're going to struggle to keep up with the growth of these public companies that are projecting to, CleanSpark. I know this company inside and out, so that's why I keep talking about them. It's not that I don't think other Bitcoin mining stocks are good, but they have plans to double their hash rate from now until the end of the year. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and make an announcement that their previous guidance on their growth is actually low and it's small. I would not be surprised at all that if they raise their year-end hash rate guidance. So it's a very interesting time where I think the public space is going to start to make up a larger percentage of the overall Bitcoin network, because the private companies simply don't have access to the capital. And you're going to have two different groups. You're going to have groups of companies or entities that have really efficient mining rigs, but not great infrastructure, not great power rates, that will sell their mining rigs to these companies, the public companies. Or you have the other group of entities that have really good infrastructure, have really good power purchase agreements, but their miners aren't very efficient. So post-halving, both groups are kind of in a pickle where they have to sell something, or it makes the most sense to sell whatever great asset they have. So yeah, there's going to be two buckets. There's going to be a bucket of highly efficient mining rigs that come up for sale, and there's going to be a bucket of great infrastructure that comes up for sale. And I think the majority of the merger, acquisition, and growth opportunity in this space is going to come from private companies. And I guess I'm saying all of this to explain to you that when people say the reason these stocks are down is because their mining revenues are going to get cut in half, Maybe that's true, but people were saying the same thing when CleanSpark was at 8 exahash per second. Well, their revenues are going to be cut in half. Well, from 8 exahash per second to 16 exahash per second, now they've doubled their hash rate. So from that 8 exahash per second, they're actually going to be flat, right? And if these companies continue to grow, they can offset the impact of the halving. And what I think people get lost on a lot is that everything with Bitcoin, the entire Bitcoin network, is predicated on the success and profitability of mining Bitcoin. If it's not profitable to mine Bitcoin, the Bitcoin network is not secure. And if the Bitcoin network is not secure, Bitcoin in itself fails. Security is priority number one, and it's in the code that Bitcoin mining has to be profitable enough for enough computers to be able to mine Bitcoin and secure the blockchain. So again, either you're going to have the price of Bitcoin continue to go up to make up for this cut in the block reward, or you're going to have difficulty adjustments come down if it's not profitable and if it's too difficult to mine Bitcoin. The difficulty adjustments to mine Bitcoin are going to come down, to mine blocks, I should say, are going to come down. So these companies that continue to grow, even though short term, maybe the revenues are going to be technically cut in half, but if they continue to grow, it's just not going to be true. They're going to grow through this halving. And the misinterpretation and the sentiment around mining stocks right now, never ever following Bitcoin ever again, these are dead companies, I think is a mistake. And it's simply because of this. It's another thing people forget. If the underlying asset of the company continues to appreciate in value, regardless of the mining economics of that company, the overall value of that company is also going to go up. Otherwise, tremendous alpha presents itself in the stock market. These companies, if Bitcoin goes up, are going to have to go up in share price as well. They're going to have to go up in market value as well. Otherwise, again, tremendous alpha is going to present itself. And another thing, I keep saying another thing people are forgetting, but it's true. Another thing people are forgetting is this time period is not new. We've had time periods in the past where mining companies and mining stocks have significantly lagged the price of Bitcoin. But it's particularly true that as bull markets mature, more and more money looks for more and more risk. And that's exactly when you see the outperformance of Bitcoin miners start to happen. Not only when Bitcoin goes up as a result of liquidity going up, but while the stock market goes up as liquidity goes up. And I've talked about on my channel before how I think a market melt-up scenario is possible where we have a huge asset bubble form if the Fed cuts rates 3 times starting in June or July. If that scenario plays out, Bitcoin mining stocks are going to be the best performing stocks in the entire stock market. Book it. You can record that. Give me grief if I'm wrong about it. But that's the way I look at this. As bull markets mature, the money starts to look for more and more risk. And it's always worked this way. There have been time periods miners have lagged Bitcoin, but it always flips. It's always a short-term phenomena because, again, otherwise significant alpha presents itself. And alpha is something that Wall Street can't avoid, right? And I know there's an argument out there that, these mining stocks, they're way too expensive. Just look at them. People were saying the exact same thing to me when I was buying CleanSpark at $4 and then when I was buying CleanSpark at $2. How are you buying this company? They are overvalued compared to the price of Bitcoin. Well, again, I don't think the masses understand that the parabolic upside for Bitcoin is much more likely to happen now than the parabolic downside of Bitcoin. It's much more likely that Bitcoin is going to go up significantly than it is for Bitcoin to go down significantly. So no matter what happens, up or down for these Bitcoin mining stocks, they're always going to look expensive because the markets, it's actually safer for the markets to value these companies on the more rich side of valuation modeling, if that makes sense, because the greater risk is actually the price of Bitcoin appreciating rapidly and continuing to grow. By the way, thank you. We have 250, nearing 300 viewers on this live stream. Thank you so much. If you're new here, returning not yet subscribed, please subscribe down below. Also consider joining with my membership. I can't talk. Cheapest one on YouTube. You get access to my buy and sell alerts, my price target spreadsheets. I think I provide the most value. If you don't find value, I have a 100% refund policy. So if that interests you, go ahead and do that. And if you don't find value by chance, I will 100% refund you. But I have not had to refund anybody. Anyways, let's talk about this Bitcoin halving really quick, and then I'll get to the chat box. This happens in 11 days. We're really getting close to the Bitcoin halving. So let's talk about the impact I think it could have on Bitcoin's price, and then also the Bitcoin mining stocks, which I've already kind of talked about. First of all, let's look at this. And I'll kind of get back into my private company talk here and why private companies and the private company exposure of the Bitcoin network matters so much. The Bitcoin halving would not matter so much for the price of Bitcoin if the miners were already holding on to the Bitcoin, if that makes sense. But most of these companies, most of the public companies, you can look at the chart on the screen now, are selling at least 100% of their production. There are only a handful of companies that are holding on to the Bitcoin they mine. It's CleanSpark, it's Hive, it's BitDigital, and it's Cypher Mining. Other than those four, and I guess technically Marathon, they're selling 43% of their production. So not all of it, but other than those, the other miners in the space are selling everything they mine. The reason why that's an important note is because the Bitcoin halving event, yes, is going to cut the amount of Bitcoin production in half. The new daily supply of Bitcoin potential is going to be cut in half. So the amount of Bitcoin that can be mined by all of the Bitcoin miners in the network every single day is going to be cut in half. And if these companies are turning around and selling their Bitcoin, selling it, it means that they're going to be able to sell less Bitcoin after the halving event. The reason I say it wouldn't matter as much if all these companies were holding onto their Bitcoin is because it wouldn't make a difference, because there wasn't sell pressure anyways from the mining companies and from the new supply going into the markets. But because these miners are selling their Bitcoin for the most part right now, the halving is going to have an impact on the price of Bitcoin. It's a simple supply and demand curve. I should try and pull this up on Google actually. Where if the supply goes down and the demand stays flat or increases, the overall price is going to, let me open this in a new tab. The overall price is going to go up. That's simple supply-demand economics. So let's see if this works. Yeah, here we go. So if supply goes up, and that would be this supply curve right here, moving up and to the left, and demand stays the same, the price, the blue dot, is going to have to rise. Right? So yes, the halving event is going to impact the price of Bitcoin. But again, it's something that people price in way ahead of time, right? And that's the first reason I laid out as to why I think you're misguided if you think the halving is why Bitcoin miners are going down, because it's a known catalyst. It's a very well-known catalyst. It's not like it just crept up on us, right? It's been a known catalyst. People price these things in. But the difference with Bitcoin itself is that this is mechanical. This is the law of the land. This is how it works, right? And until this is how it works, it really can't be priced in. When the daily new supply of Bitcoin gets cut in half, it will have a material impact on the price of Bitcoin. It's really hard to price that in because you can't really price in the amount of sellers. It's a very difficult thing to do. So unlike the Bitcoin mining stocks being unaffected by the halving event, at least in my eyes, I think the price of Bitcoin will be affected by the halving event, which in lieu could affect the price of the Bitcoin miners if the price of Bitcoin goes up. So again, I think you're very misguided if you're one of those people on social media or financial Twitter, or X, I guess it is now. I think you're very misguided if you're one of those people that thinks Bitcoin miners are dead, these stocks are never going to go back up again. We've had time periods like this in the past. And like I said earlier, I'm going to make the prediction now. I think this is one of the better buying opportunities for Bitcoin mining stocks that we're going to see, especially if we see a market melt-up scenario. Now, I've also talked about a scenario on my channel where the markets feel some short-term pain as the Federal Reserve takes rate cuts out of the equation. If that were to happen, I do think that mining stocks could have some downside. And that's just another catalyst that could be adding some negative pressure to the Bitcoin mining stocks. If you overlap the Bitcoin mining stock charts over the chart of the NASDAQ, it's much more correlated than if you overlap the mining stock charts over the Bitcoin price chart. So it's very clear that right now, at least, the broad market dynamics are impacting the price of these Bitcoin mining stocks much more than the price of Bitcoin is. And I've said it several times. There have been time periods like this in the past. It's not a new thing. Eventually, it will correct. And if Bitcoin goes up enough, there's no choice but for the miners to follow. But if the Fed does take rate cuts out of the equation, which I think is the right move, full transparency, I do think the price of Bitcoin can suffer. Because right now, the markets they're pricing in rate cuts. They're pricing in even greater financial liquidity. They're pricing in more liquidity as well as looser financial conditions. And if that changes, liquidity is going to come out of the system. Financial conditions are going to retighten, and it's just a known fact. When liquidity isn't easy to come by for people, Bitcoin usually suffers. And I don't think that's going to change this time just because of the halving event. But yes, overall, the halving should have a positive impact on the price of Bitcoin. Now, one last note I want to make before I get to the chat is it is also evident with the price of Bitcoin that the Bitcoin ETFs are impacting the price of Bitcoin. What I mean by that is these ETFs, you can track these at bitcoinstrategyplatform.com. These Bitcoin ETFs on average are purchasing several thousand of Bitcoin every single day. Every single day. I think there's 11, maybe 12. I'd have to recount them, but I think there's 11 or 12 public spot Bitcoin ETFs currently. And there's basically $50 billion of assets under management already in these ETFs. And a question we have to ask ourselves is, did this $50 billion come from money that was sitting on the sidelines? Probably not. It probably came from somewhere, and it probably came from the old alternatives of getting exposure to Bitcoin. And for the most part, the only direct exposure to Bitcoin you could get was by buying the Bitcoin mining stocks. But again, as this normalizes, as the people that wanted to transfer their money from the Bitcoin mining stocks to the Bitcoin ETFs get that done, the bid and ask for I guess I should phrase this, the bid is going to start to catch back up to the ask on the Bitcoin mining stocks. But the reason I say that Bitcoin is highly correlated is that's the wrong chart here. The reason I say Bitcoin ETF inflows and outflows are highly correlated with the price of Bitcoin is because of this chart on the screen here. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. But you can clearly see any time that Bitcoin has had inflows, the price of Bitcoin anytime the Bitcoin ETFs have had inflows, the price of Bitcoin has gone up. Anytime the Bitcoin ETFs have had outflows, like just a couple of weeks after these spot Bitcoin ETFs were approved, the price of Bitcoin went down. Inflows went up, outflows went down, inflows went up. So this is something that I think we need to keep an eye on because it's a fact. Institutional adoption of Bitcoin is at a very young stage. And I think this is going to continue to be a bullish catalyst for Bitcoin, as well as the Bitcoin mining stocks long term. Again, as that capital that wants to cycle out of the miners cycles out and into the Bitcoin ETFs and things normalize. Long-term Bitcoin miners will benefit from this. Otherwise, again, alpha presents itself, which you can't avoid in the stock market. If there's alpha, you buy. So this is something we need to keep an eye on. I think it was just last week, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange they approved or received request for two Hong Kong spot Bitcoin ETFs. I think the London Stock Exchange had a similar catalyst. So this starts in the United States, and then all of these other companies, it's been this case with everything, every asset in history. What the United States does, other countries follow. So it's not even just United States adoption of Bitcoin in the ability to gain exposure to Bitcoin via ETFs that is going to drive demand for Bitcoin. It's also the exposure that international countries are going to get by approving their own spot Bitcoin ETFs. And that's another catalyst I don't think people are paying much attention to currently. Now, I was going to make one other point, if I can think of what I was going to say. It had to do with spot Bitcoin ETFs, but my mind likes to ramble, and sometimes I lose my point. So keep an eye on inflows and outflows of ETFs. This is going to be a major impact to the price of Bitcoin moving forward. The halving inevitably is going to be a positive impact on the price of Bitcoin moving forward. Short-term fluctuations could happen, up and down, up and down, up and down. But ultimately, Bitcoin mining stocks are going to be good investments. And you know, we're in a very unique time period right now where there's a lot of negative catalysts coming in. And by the way, I saw Chris. Chris joined the membership. Thank you, Chris. You're a great dude. But you know, you have to take emotions out of investing. I know it's easy for me to say because I'm not trying to brag either. I don't ever want to brag. That's not who I am. But I just want to be clear. I have a bias here. My cost basis with CleanSpark is very low compared to most people. So it's a lot easier for me to not be emotionally impacted by the ups and downs of the Bitcoin mining stocks, but it's something you have to master in the stock market. If you want to succeed as an investor, as an individual investor, you have to take emotion out of it because individual investing, by definition, is a very lonely road because you're making bets that the rest of the stock market is wrong in valuing something. And you're going against the grain and saying you think everybody else in the market is misvaluing something. That's what you're doing when you're individually stock picking. And as a result, you can get all this negative feedback online, just like I did when I made that tweet today, and I continue to get repeatedly. Rex, you don't know what you're doing. You're a noob. You haven't been here very long. But it's a fact. You have to be able to remove that emotion because it is a lonely road. You're going to have people telling you you're wrong, and that's just something that happens. But you have to be able to trust your own research, trust your own due diligence, trust your gut. That's how you succeed as an individual stock picker. And that's how I've found success. Now, I've had my fair share of mistakes. Everybody knows that. I'll continue to have my mistakes. But if you win more than you lose, you're going to beat the markets. But the reason people don't win more than they lose when they individual stock pick is because of emotions. And it's because they lack patience because of their emotions, right? So my strategy is always buy what's undervalued, hold on to it till it's overvalued. Right now, I don't think Bitcoin mining stocks are overvalued. Like my price target spreadsheet, which again, if you want access to it, you can join my membership. It's made available to all my paid monthly members in the Discord server. I've priced in this halving event for CleanSpark. In my fair value for the company, if Bitcoin hits $100,000, which it looks like it will do this year, is $40 a share, essentially. $40 a share. And if that happens, CleanSpark is going to vastly outperform Bitcoin by the end of this year. And again, this cycles back to this is something I've priced in. And if I've priced this in, Wall Street certainly has priced this in. So I don't necessarily remember what else I was going to cover with the spot ETFs, but maybe it'll come to me. I'm going to get to the chat now really quick and answer some of your questions. Okay. Let me scroll through these and I'll get to your questions here. Thank you guys for sending questions, by the way. I love talking about this stuff. First question, a lot of questions about MicroStrategy and other mining stocks. So yeah, again, I am very bullish on CleanSpark. I'm bullish on Cypher. I've always said though, a rising tide lifts all boats, and it doesn't look that way right now, but it's going to remain that way. Where if the price of Bitcoin does well, the Bitcoin mining stocks as a whole are going to do well. You have all these people in this space right now trying to micro-analyze these companies. Point to, I'm not poking fun at Penny Ether, but he's a good example of this, and I just don't agree with him. It doesn't mean he's wrong. It just means I don't agree with it. He points to enterprise value and free cash flows and free cash flow yields. And you have other people micro-analyzing these companies, saying that short term, their mining revenues are going to be cut in half because of the halving. There's just countless examples of people micro-analyzing the performance of these stocks right now, where in the end, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Bitcoin mining stocks are going to be mostly impacted by the amount of risk tolerance the general markets have and the amount of risk the general markets want to take. And as bull markets mature, more and more investors seek more and more risk. And that's when you get a new flood of investors. So what you need to think of is right now, and you can even point to Bitcoin. It's not even just Bitcoin mining stocks, but the people that have been buying Bitcoin, like chances are, if you're in this live stream and watching me right now, you're not new to Bitcoin. You've bought Bitcoin in the past. You've bought Bitcoin mining stocks in the past, and you're just either buying more now or you're initiating a new position after you sold out previously. But you're pretty well versed with Bitcoin. You're aware of it. You know what it is. You know you've had exposure in the past to it, right? So until we reach the point where we have a new flood of investors, we're not going to have the crazy outperformance of Bitcoin mining stocks, right? That's something that comes when the flood of new investors comes. I personally think, $100,000 is going to be a very key level. Another catalyst to that could be more and more S&P 500 companies buying Bitcoin, because you have to start thinking, you think of Tesla, you think of MicroStrategy. A lot of these companies they get FOMO. They get FOMO like retail investors do. They start thinking, our cash, we have billions of dollars in cash sitting on our balance sheets. Inflation is 4% every single year. We're not really investing it. And all these other companies have bought just a small sliver of Bitcoin and they've made return on their capital for shareholders. I wonder if we should start doing that. That's the sort of thing companies start to think about. Last cycle, that's something companies started to think about. Last cycle, it was Tesla and Elon Musk starting to think about that. That's another thing that's going to happen. I remember, it just came to me what I was going to talk about with Bitcoin spot ETFs, and I apologize for being all over the place. But one thing that investors aren't thinking about right now is the ability for investors to eventually purchase options and sell options on these spot Bitcoin ETFs. It might not sound like a big deal, but think about this. Big time investors, so we're talking multimillionaires, even billionaires. We're talking companies out there. We're talking Bitcoin mining companies out there. We're talking about individual investors. We're talking about everybody in this space. Everybody is looking for ways to protect themselves from the downside of Bitcoin. What the options market does is it gives investors that ability to hedge their risk, to take advantage of the volatility on both sides and normalize their returns rather than riding the wave of Bitcoin going up, thousands of percent through the years, but also having time periods where Bitcoin goes down 50%, 60%, 70%. The options market opens up a whole new flood of investors, in my personal opinion. More and more capital. And then you start to think about how these companies have to, or market makers have to hold the underlying when the options chain opens up for these spot Bitcoin ETFs. This could get really exciting, and that's a catalyst I don't think a lot of people are factoring in. The fact that, and I think that could be a factor that actually increases adoption to it. Where because you can now manage the risk better because of the options chain and the options in call options and put options, it's a lot safer for companies to invest in Bitcoin, and it's another way you can generate yield on your cash. So I'm glad I remembered that. That was a key point that just like went through my mind and I forgot about. So I'm glad it came back to me. Well over 300 people watching this. Thank you guys so much. I'm incredibly blessed by this community. There's 330 people watching me right now. It's just amazing. And I'm a 22-year-old that has 32,000 subscribers, one of the fastest growing stock market YouTube channels out there. I'm just incredibly blessed by this amazing community. You guys watching me, thank you so much. And if you're not a part of this community yet, I highly encourage you to join it because we have a lot of fun. And again, I think my success speaks for itself. I don't like to brag or show my previous stock purchases and bring up all my gains on my channel, because if people want to go back and look at, my cost basis on things and when I was saying I was buying stuff, they can do that. I don't want to show that off. That's just not who I am. I'm always forward looking with the markets. So, if that interests you or makes you happy, I guess, to have a YouTuber like that out there, consider joining and subscribing. So Xavier Martinez made the comment, earnings season is coming up for the Bitcoin miners. Buckle up, everyone. We are about to head to the moon. Very good point. I don't know if I would say buckle up, we're going to the moon, but it's a very good point. There's a lot of investors, a lot of Wall Street out there, especially, that doesn't necessarily understand that with the new accounting rules, these companies can they can count the appreciation and the value of their Bitcoin towards their bottom line. So a lot of these companies, actually all of these companies, if they hold Bitcoin, are going to report very good net income and profit numbers. So yes, that's a catalyst coming up. Some people see it, others don't. Anyways, let me see if I got other questions here. There's a lot of questions, actually. Here we go. Somebody asked, is there a free online course that you would recommend to get a better understanding of options? There are so many. I don't know of any free courses online, but I'm not trying to keep shouting out my membership, because I don't want to take advantage of you guys' time. But if you want access to an options tutorial, an options strategy, basically portfolio of videos, I've made it available to my premium paid monthly members, so you can watch my videos. Otherwise, there are really good free resources online. Investopedia has good resources for that. So I would highly encourage you to read through the Investopedia articles. Okay, somebody here's from France. Very, very cool. Somebody says they see a massive opportunity in Bitcoin mining stocks right now. What worries me most is selling too early and missing out on most profits when the eventual rise comes. Happened to me in the past. So yeah, I might go on a little bit of a tangent here, and I apologize. This is something that I get a lot of grief for when I say I am a long-term holder of Bitcoin mining stocks. People say that Rex is dumb. He doesn't think there's going to be another bear market. That's not true. Let me clarify. I guarantee you there's going to be another bear market in the future. I guarantee you that Bitcoin is going to feel pain at some point in the future. I guarantee you Bitcoin miners are going to feel a lot of pain at some point in the future. But just like this individual said, it's not a risk that I'm willing to take. I'm young enough that I can stomach the risk of any bear market. And, you have people out there, look at the Fed liquidity cycle, look at these Bitcoin cycles of the past, look at this Bitcoin rainbow chart, look at yada, yada, yada indicator on Bitcoin in the previous cycle. This is going to be 100% predictable. I'm going to buy the exact bottom. I'm going to sell at the exact top, and I'm going to just time this out perfectly. That is very, very unrealistic. And if you follow anybody that says that, I would unfollow them, because they simply don't understand market dynamics. The way a market works is if you think you have an edge on everybody else, you are sorely mistaken. Everybody else sees the same edge. And as a result, everybody else tries to front run the same price action that is supposedly perfectly predictable. Based on history, this time is the perfect time to buy, and based on history, this is the perfect time to sell. Well, if everybody does that, it's going to render the perfectly predictable Bitcoin cycle as perfectly unpredictable. That's just the way the Bitcoin cycle works. So do I think a bear market's going to come? Yes. But when people say it's going to for certain come in 2026, I start to question it. I start to question them, because there is no guarantee. I mean, think of 2020, the great virus crisis. How many people predicted that? 0. Black swan event. So there's so many variables at play that people just don't understand, and they don't pay attention to, and they just point at historic price action to tell them when they need to buy and when they need to sell. No, I would pull up my spreadsheet on the screen here, but I don't want to waste you guys' time getting it pulled up. No matter what happens, no matter what bull or bear market we see and when it happens, I have CleanSpark hitting $1,000 per share, including dilution, by 2030 if Bitcoin hits $1 million per Bitcoin. That is tremendous return. Do I want to risk missing out on that potential return just because I think it's going to be a top? No, because I know for certain I'm not going to be able to time the bottom. When you try and time the markets, you are saying that the markets always trade rationally. Big mistake. Big mistake. The markets never trade rationally. That's why there's opportunity that presents itself in the market. And, if you sell out because you think the markets are becoming irrational, I have news for you. Markets can remain irrational for months, for years. Think of 1990, the 1990s. All of the bullish sentiment, the valuations on stocks back then. You could have sold out when you thought it was the top, and you would have missed out on 20, 30% return in the market indices. That's not even considering individual stocks. Just because you thought the market was irrational, but it kept humming higher and higher. So when you try and time a top and say the market's irrational right now, and you're basically saying that the market is always going to correct and become rational short term. Well, if that doesn't happen, you're out of luck. You're out of your position, and you're going to have to buy back in much higher. And you probably will never buy back in because you have the confirmation bias of the past, right? So it's a big problem with market psychology that people, especially in this Bitcoin and crypto space, just I don't understand why they miss it, or they don't quite understand it. You know, today, like when I put out that tweet, people were calling me a moon boy and things like that. Like, give me a break. Give me a break. Like, all of these people, oh man, I could go on a tangent about this. I should just stop. So I apologize. But yeah, that's my little rant there. I see people think they can predict the markets and when bear markets are going to hit based on previous cycles and previous price action. I don't think so, man. And it's not a risk I'm willing to take. Somebody asked me, which miners do I hold? Right now, I hold CleanSpark is a huge percentage of my portfolio, and I wish it was less, but I'm not going to sell out of it. And that's just simply because I was buying it, and it's not a flex again. I was buying it $2 4 years ago, and I was buying it $4 4 years ago, and I rode the wave up to $40 a share. I sold some to pay for my college tuition and college expense. Wish I didn't go to college at all, but that's another story. And then I ended up buying more at $4, at $8, at $2. So my cost basis with CleanSpark is just so low right now. And based on its performance, it's just simply grown into such a large position of my overall portfolio. That's why I'm not adding to Bitcoin mining stocks right now, is because I have some concentration risk in my portfolio. And I don't really want to add to an already huge position. But I own CleanSpark, long answer. And I just started a very small tracker position in Cypher mining. I didn't even send out the buy alert in the Discord server or to my paid monthly members because it's such a small buy that I made. Ideally, I think Cypher and CleanSpark merge and become a juggernaut in the space. I think they are the most well-run companies. They hold on to their Bitcoin. They have the best, arguably the best execution. Definitely the best efficiency. Like Cypher mining, their power costs are the cheapest in the space. And ultimately, Cypher and CleanSpark are the only... I'll see if I can find the tweet, actually. I did some research. By the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter, make sure you do so. I'm up to 5,500 followers. My X game has been on point. I've been growing like crazy, but see if I can find this. I tweeted about it not long ago. Here we go. This is a chart that shows you, and I'll have to zoom out. This is a chart... it's not working for me to zoom out. I hope you guys can see this. This is a chart that shows you the different Bitcoin mining stocks and the different business ventures they're in. So there are only 4 pure play Bitcoin mining companies that are focusing 100% of their resources into Bitcoin mining. This is what we do. We're going to master it, and we're going to get pure Bitcoin exposure because of it. It's Argo Blockchain, it's Bitfarms, it's Cypher Mining, and it's CleanSpark. Of these 4, CleanSpark, Cypher are my favorite for numerous reasons. Maybe I'll talk about it in a video another time. But you also have BitDigital, who is in the HPC AI business. They sell hardware, and they're in the Ethereum space. You have BitDeer in the AI space, and they sell hardware. You have Core Scientific in the AI space, and they provide hosting services, which is another revenue stream, but it's not them mining Bitcoin. And this list goes on and on. Bottom line, there are 4 out of the 15 public Bitcoin mining companies with greater than 2 exahash per second of operating capacity. 4 of them, 26% of these mining companies are pure play Bitcoin mining companies. So I said it in this tweet. For some reason, this tweet didn't get much attention. I thought it was a really good tweet personally. But in a bull market where Bitcoin is going up in price, I see Argo, Bitfarms, Cypher, and CleanSpark performing the best. In bear markets, I see these other names that are in the HPC AI business and maybe even the hardware sales business performing the best because they can limit their downside by having other revenue streams. But if you want the best beta and the best return on Bitcoin, it's in these 4 companies. And ultimately, I usually dismiss these top 2 for numerous reasons. And again, I could talk about that in another live stream or another video. But that's why I'm in CleanSpark and Cypher. It's because I believe in Bitcoin. And I think what a lot of these other companies don't realize is the opportunity. And I'm not saying it's the wrong decision for them to make. There's a lot of people way smarter than me in charge of these companies. But what a lot of them are missing, at least the way I look at it, is that their opportunity cost of doing all these other business ventures is Bitcoin. And when you think of Bitcoin, it theoretically has unlimited upside in valuation. So the opportunity cost in turn is also technically unlimited. And if you truly believe that Bitcoin is going to be a part of the future and continue to gain adoption and traction, you should be all in on Bitcoin, in my personal opinion. Now, again, yeah, they're going to feel less pain in bear markets, these companies that have diversified their business model. But long term, if you want the best exposure to Bitcoin, in my opinion, it's buying CleanSpark and Cypher. Again, not financial advice. There's people out there way smarter than me that would disagree with my thesis, but this is just based on my own research. So long-winded answer, I own CleanSpark. I'm looking to maybe increase my position in Cypher mining if I can decrease my overall concentration in mining stocks in my overall portfolio. So yeah, there's some background on that. Let's see. So I'll clarify this. The reason I don't like Marathon, and I think I've been pretty clear about this in the past, but it's because when you invest in Marathon, sure, they're technically the biggest operator, which should give them some sort of competitive advantage when it comes to growing and becoming bigger and taking over a larger and larger percentage of the network hash rate. The reason I don't necessarily like Marathon is because with Marathon, you're not just betting on Bitcoin going up, but if you want to get outperformance, you're also betting that the management team's execution is going to turn around. Like even the bulls, even the people that hold Marathon stock admit, and they're fed up with the management team not being able to execute. And now the company, again, they're trying to get into all these different business ventures. They're trying to be a jack of all trades when they haven't even been able to master the art of Bitcoin mining, right? They can't keep their fleet operational. And so it's a risk that I don't think I need to take in an already risky industry when I'm making an already risky investment in CleanSpark and partially Cypher mining. I don't feel it's necessary to mine to own the Bitcoin mining stocks that have quote unquote strings attached to them. I don't feel like I need to take a chance on Marathon's management team just randomly finally being able to execute and turn things around. I don't think I need to take that risk to get good upside by holding Bitcoin mining stocks. So hopefully that gives you some background. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. It's just the way I think about things. And so far it's done me well to own CleanSpark, the best executor in the space. Again, that's something everybody agrees on. Even if you don't own CleanSpark and you own other Bitcoin mining companies, you understand CleanSpark's been a really dang good operator. And they've been a really good grower. They've been very good to shareholders, even though they've diluted a lot. That dilution has been accretive dilution, where the overall value of the company has increased. The overall value per share has increased, although each share is representing a smaller and smaller percentage of the company. That's accretive dilution. That's the definition of accretive dilution, and they've been great at that. So JT says, what goes into your decision making for taking some profits along the way? So JT, I've talked about this on my channel in the past. If we end up getting a market melt up where the Fed cuts rates 3 times, I think it's the wrong decision. But if they go through with it, I think we're at significant risk of forming an asset bubble in an overall market melt up where we see, it might make 2021 look small. It might make that bull market look small if we see a melt-up scenario. If we get that scenario, I likely will try and trim some of my position towards the end of the year. And that's just simply because it makes up such a large percent of my portfolio. And if we do form an asset bubble, and if we do have a market melt-up, it's not going to be the popular opinion at the time, but I thrive in going against the grain. I think that's why I've been so successful in my investment journey. I will be out there and I will be selling some of my stocks and I will be hedging my portfolio. If we don't get that scenario and we just get a short-term pullback in the markets as a result of the Fed taking rate cuts out of the equation, I don't feel a need to sell these companies because I don't want to miss out on the long-term upside of Bitcoin. If you sell out and take profits, you risk missing out on that upside. And that's just not a risk I want to take at this point in my life. Now, I'm very young. It's an interesting stat. 96.5% of the people that watch my videos and watch my channel are older than me. And basically half of them are twice my age, right? So chances are, if you're watching this, you're in a very different situation than I am. So don't just take what I'm doing as what you should do, right? You need to understand your own situation and do your own research and understand your own holdings. Okay, and yeah, somebody said Mara can be a good swing. I 100% agree with that. So I mentioned this earlier, that a rising tide lifts all boats. If Bitcoin goes up, the Bitcoin mining stocks are going to go up as a whole. And that's going to be the case. You're going to get great return no matter what Bitcoin miner you hold. Old guy says your first 20 minutes was terrible. Sorry you got your feelings hurt. Move on. I didn't get my feelings hurt. I just thought it was funny that the sentiment around Bitcoin mining is so terrible. And people were saying I was young, so I don't understand, right? So that's I'm not butthurt. Like it's not new that people call me young, and you know, it's not new. Like I'm well past that hurting my feelings. So I apologize you didn't find that first 20 minutes valuable. Let's see. Matthew Hobbs, I lost all my money on Bitcoin miners. Well, this is what I'm talking about. This is why the sentiment with Bitcoin mining stocks is so bad, is because you had so many people chase the euphoria, chase the top. If you want to succeed in the stock market, you have to stop doing that. You have to stop piling into these stocks when everybody else is piling into them. Right now is when you want to be buying, when everybody is bearish on these stocks. And everybody's giving the bulls grief about owning these stocks. That's when you buy. That's when you buy, not when there's euphoria, right? That's why I bought the overall stock market at the end of 2022, because nobody else wanted to. That's why I bought CleanSpark at $2 just a year ago, or whenever it was trading at $2. It's when nobody else wants these companies. That's when you buy them. And that's something that's really hard to get through your head, because you have to ignore the noise. You have to ignore everybody telling you negative things, giving you negative feedback. You have to ignore it. You have to be able to do that. So I'm sorry you lost a lot of money on Bitcoin miners, but you're going to continue to make those sorts of mistakes unless you can get that through your head and make that change. And it's a really difficult change to make. I'm not saying it's easy. It's very hard. That's why so many people fail at this. It's so hard to go against the grain and go against everybody else out there, right? So, yeah, I'm sorry you lost your money, but if you believe in Bitcoin long term, you shouldn't worry that you bought the Bitcoin miners at the top. Now, I'm guessing you've probably completely sold out of your Bitcoin mining stocks now because you freaked out and everybody's telling you need to sell. Which again, you got to change that mindset. If you really want to be successful, you have to change that mindset. Have to. Somebody asked my thoughts on Moss and Infrastructure Group, and then Sphere 3D, I think is what ANY is. Again, it's not like, I feel like I can get significant upside exposure to Bitcoin by buying the high quality companies in the space. I don't see any point of taking on even more risk by buying the crap, if that makes sense. Sure, they could perform great, but it's not a risk that I feel like I need to make when I think I can get hundreds of % return owning the good names in this space. So I'm not interested in Mawson or ANY at all. I'm not saying you can't buy them. It's all on you. It's just the way I look at things. It's not it's just not the way I look at things. I'm not saying I'm right. Okay. Edward says, with halving and Bitcoin rising in price, look for big countries and companies to start mining, putting small companies out of business. Yeah, it's a very possible scenario. I talked earlier about how I think the private space is going to become a smaller and smaller portion of the total Bitcoin network. It's just because they have limited access to capital compared to the public companies. And I don't think that's something people are pricing in. Somebody made this clear. Do not invest what you don't want to lose. Very, very good point. If you are uncomfortable and you are emotional about your investing, you have too much money invested. And that's just a fact. And the reason I'm saying all this stuff isn't to critique people. It's not to point the finger and say you're dumb and you're stupid. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm telling you this stuff because I have been in your shoes. I'm only 22, turning 23 in May, but I've been investing in this stock market for 6 or 7 years. I've had a custodial account that my dad opened for me. I've been nerdy about this stuff for that long. I have studied the markets for that long, regardless of my age. I have been in those exact same shoes. I've had to learn those hard lessons. And I'm hoping, that's my goal with this YouTube channel, is I hope that as a result of the experiences I have had, if I share those experiences, I can help other people go through those same experiences and maybe go through them in a better mindset and maybe go through them quicker. And I think I've done a good job of that. But again, you have to take an initiative of it. It's a complete mindset shift that you have to undertake for yourself. And it's so hard to do. It is so hard to do. I mean, you should go back on my channel, like at the end of 2022 when I was saying I was buying. You should have seen what people were telling me. You should have seen the comments people were making. You should have seen the threats people were making towards me. And you know, I'm an extreme example. You know, if you're just some random guy on the internet, you're not going to get that same feedback that a public figure like myself gets. But still, your family and friends are going to make those sorts of comments. Your colleagues are going to make those sorts of comments. But you have to tune the noise out. You have to be contrarian. You have to go against the grain, and it's a very lonely road by definition. It is very hard to be an individual stock picker because what other people are doing and what other people are saying is generally not what you should be doing. Sometimes it is, but generally it's not. You can look at any market cycle in history, and you'll see that. Let's see. Mara, $18 a share, produced 900 Bitcoin in March. Core's $3 per share, produced 900 Bitcoin in March. Number one USA miner, great opportunity. Yeah, maybe, Frank, but with Core Scientific, you're also going to have, whenever a company goes bankrupt, they're always going to trade at a discount because you lose trust of investors and your brand is always smeared. Oh, that's the company that went bankrupt, right? And if I'm not mistaken, they still have a lot of debt that they need to take care of. So don't forget that when you're trying to price Core Scientific. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about today. So thank you everybody for showing up. We almost reached 400 viewers. That's insane. Thank you guys so much. I'm incredibly blessed by you guys. I mean, this is just such an amazing community. I can't thank you guys enough. I wake up baffled every day. Like, I have 32,000 subscribers. That's more than 4 times the size of the town I grew up in. 4 times the size. That's the audience I've been able to build when age has been a headwind for me. So I'm really excited about the future when age becomes a tailwind for me. You know, we're already changing lives for the better here, and it's not something I take lightly at all. And I'm grateful to God every single day that He's put me in this position. Sometimes I don't know why He's put me in this position, but it's not something that I take lightly. So I'm incredibly blessed by you guys, and I want to make that very clear. I've said that several times today. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Again, if you want access to my price target spreadsheets, and my buy and sell alerts, my macro analysis, exclusive posts, exclusive videos, consider joining my membership. I think it's the cheapest one on YouTube, and I think I provide really good value for what you pay. I have a 100% refund policy if you don't find value in it. So it's a zero risk investment for you. I'm 100% self-funded. I'll always remain self-funded. You know, people always like to claim, oh, you're paid to make these videos. You're paid to make these live streams to be bullish on these companies and bearish on these companies. No, I'm not. All of my research is my own, entirely self-funded. I always will be. My independence is something that I value above all else. It's something that I never want to lose, and I never want to take you guys for granted. I don't want to enter an FTX deal, for example, like other YouTubers have. I don't want to take. Here's a fact for you. And do with this what you will. I've been offered $50,000 to talk about a stock in the past. And I didn't even return the email. And there were some other YouTubers that were included in the email that I won't mention today that did end up taking those deals. It's not in my morals to do so. What you get when you watch me is my full transparency. It's who I am. It's based on the research I've done. And I will always be independent. So, again, thank you so much. I'll have some videos out later this week. Probably tomorrow I'll have a video out. Subscribe if you're new here or returning, not yet subscribed. I appreciate you guys greatly. Have a great